Hello everyone and welcome to Wednesday, December 23rd, the Wednesday of the fourth week of Advent. The lesson for today is taken from the writing of the Norwegian author Sigrid Undset. And when we give each other Christmas gifts in His name, let us remember that He has given us the sun and the moon and the stars, and the earth with its forests and mountains and oceans, and all that live and move upon them. He has given us all green things and everything that blossoms and bears fruit, as well as all that we quarrel about and all that we have misused. And to save ourselves from our own foolishness, from all our sins, He came down to earth and gave Himself. Sigrid Undset was born in 1882 in Denmark. And when she was just 2 years old, her family moved to Norway. And she lived through the trauma of both World War I and World War II. And at one point, needed to flee from the Nazis and came to the United States for a time. She eventually returned to Norway and lived there until her death in 1949. And at age 42, she converted to Catholicism and became a lay Dominican. If you look at the progression of her writing, you see a person trying to make sense of the mystery of God in a world that has been ravaged by violence and sorrow. And it took her years until she was able to embrace the notion that a loving God is present and that God gives meaning to our lives, even in the midst of great hardship and struggle. What I found meaningful in the lesson that we just heard was this idea that this God who made the stars and the moon and the sun, the God who gives us all of the beauty of creation, this same God gave us Himself when He came to earth. And I've been praying a great deal about that these days. That most important part of our Catholic faith, the incarnation, that's what we celebrate at Christmas. The incarnation, that God is with us and became one of us. As I reflected on this, I started thinking about a movie that I have long loved, The Lion King. Maybe you saw the movie or the show. There's a part when the character of Mufasa is speaking with his son Simba, and they're looking at the stars together. And he says to Simba, even at a time when I am not by your side as I am right now, I want you to remember that I'm still with you, that I live inside of you. And he says to Simba, remember who you are. You are the son of a king and all those who have gone before you. And even when things seem bleak, remember who you are. Now, for those of you who know the story, difficult things happen and Simba does in fact forget. And when he's needed by his family, he comes very close to walking away because he has forgotten who he is. But he finally remembers the voice of his Father within him, and he remembers who he is and who he is called to be. Isn't that similar to all of us right now? We are living through a tremendously difficult time in history. And as we approach Christmas this year, maybe we can remember that idea. Remember who we are. We are created by God. We are God's daughters and sons. We are made in God's image and likeness. And what if, for these remaining days of Advent as we approach the wonderful feast of Christmas, what if we believe that God is saying to us, through the Christ child, remember who you are. Remember that in the midst of darkness, you are called to be light. Remember that in the midst of despair, you are called to be hope. Remember that in the midst of chaos, you are called to be peace. Remember, in the midst of sorrow, you are called to be joy. When so many might be wondering if God is still around these days, you are called to say, yes, God is here. Emmanuel, God is with us. We remember who we are, and we rejoice and proclaim that message this Christmas. Blessings to you and your family of deep hope and abiding peace this Christmas.